Good evening, Marv Rabbi Isai. We're continuing the sugya of Kedusha Shabbos. I want to thank the organization known as Kedusha Shabbos that puts out these pamphlets and teaches the olam the chelek of Zohar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsha, what makes Shabbos exciting, meaningful, and understanding. So as we do every week, we start with a few questions. The olam knows that they know Hilchos Shabbos. Avada they do. But sometimes there are situations that come up which, when you don't know why you're doing it, you don't know the tam, so hot nish kan tam. But if you know the reason, then it makes it much more gishmak, it makes it much more understandable, and you enjoy it. I have a couple of questions for the olam. You cover your Challah for Lechem Mishnah. We cover Lechem Mishnah. By Challah Shidus you also cover. By Leil Shabbos you cover Shabbos in the free, but Challah Shidus there's minhagim. What's Taka the Pshat? Why is there no consistency? If you cover, so cover by all. And if you don't, then don't cover. When there's a Simcha, a bar mitzvah, an offer of Shabbos Sheva Bruchas, the chusa makes kiddush for everybody, and there are bilkalach on all the tables. Those bilkalach have to be covered. Is the din of covering the challah when you cover the lechem mishnah, is it halacha that the mekadesh was that he who makes kiddush has to cover his challahs? What about all the other people and all the other tables and all the other bilkalach? Do they also have to be covered? Or, no, medafnisht. Can a person cover his challahs? He doesn't have a challah deco, but there's a plastic on the table. Can he stick the challah under the plastic? Is a plastic cover, it says badekt, it's covered. But is a plastic cover count for covering the challahs? The kanzain, you could see it. Is the inyan that there should just be something on top of it? Even plastic is good, or does it have to be, in Yiddish you would call it bahalten, hidden? Is it inyan of hiding it? Or is it inyan of covering it? If you're covering it with a plastic, it's covered. If you have to hide it, I can see it, it's not hidden. When you make kiddush Shabbos in the morning and there's mezainis, is there an inyan bechlal to cover that mezainis? Is it only challahs, or is it the mezainis as well? What should a person do when it comes to covering over mezainis when you make kiddush, and if there's crackers? Besides for, let's say, cake, does that also need? But if you have to, do you have to cover everything or you don't have to? These are some of the shaylas. Like we said, by Suda Shlishis, by Shalashidis, does everybody have to cover all the challahs? Does it have to be covered? Does it have to be covered with something that you can't see? If you see it, is it good? These are the shaylas. So let's learn the sugya. So in our handout over here, we have, be'etzem, what we'll see, 3 reasons of why challahs need to be covered. 3 reasons. We want to share Moshe. This is from the Lechem Mishnah. That was last time. So, and then you have over there. So like this. There's a Gemara, this is page 1, on top over here, which is 3 at the bottom. A Gemara that talks about the source of covering is a Gemara in Arvei Psachim. The source of covering challah in general, the source of covering lechem mishnah. State in the Gemara, Rav Papa, Rabba bar Rav Huna, Ikla beresh galusa, Aisa taka kamei. They brought out a table, Pairis mappa, they put over a mappa ve kiddush, and he made kiddush. Here's where it says a source that the food was covered over while there was kiddush. Taisvis explains what's going on. Zug Taisvis over here, that it's mashma she'ein mevi in divrei maschal hashulchan ela imkein kiddush. You don't bring the table ela imkain kiddush until you made kiddush. Tosfos is masber. Once upon a time, people all ate mesubin. It was the way that they ate by the parsim, that they would, each one would have little tables. So there would be kiddush first, and the food wouldn't be there. It would be prepared on the side in a different area, and noch kiddush, they would bring out the food. Says Tosfos, "V'hodam b'chol kisvei motzah shulchan aruch malach toiv amar amen." Like kasha da'aruchu b'mokam achar. Ach eimen v'ino yisayid l'mokam sudat achar kiddush. Once upon a time, when you made kiddush, there was no food around. The food was prepared at the side. The achshav shulchan oishalanu hen gedoylem yoysim edai v'kosher l'vim achar kiddush. Times have changed. We have big tables. You can't bring them in. It's too much of a hefsek. So therefore, we set the table up with the food. Peiris mape v'kadesh v'hatam and parvus. And why? What's the svara? V'hatam. Mefurish b'shiltis ki heiche de teisei suda sa b'yikra de Shabbos. Yikra means a lashon of kuvod. Yikra means kuvod. The kuvod Shabbos should be that the food, the nice food, should have a cover over it. I'm not sure, but it could be in the way sometimes when they would serve in fancy chasanas, they bring food which is covered up and then they uncover it. Maybe that's what he means, but it has halacha. It's meant to be a chashivas for the food. V'yesh lefarish, that's one pshat. Zeicher lemon, shaloi hoya yared b'shabbos v'yam tovim. Shabbat, they didn't have, and before it was prepared Erev Shabbos. On Shabbos it came down, it came down on Friday, right? Well, soon, but it came down double. And when it came down, there was tal, lemon, and tal again. So it was sandwiched in. Hoya tal milamala vilamatva man bentayim. So the cover that we cover over the challah, the lechem mishnah is zeicher lemon, which came with a cover. Indeed, if it's taka zeicher lemon, we can already say that if it's taka zeicher lemon, then it's not enough to just cover your challah on top. There was tal on top and there's tal on the bottom, which would mean that you have to have two tablecloths, below and above. And if you turn to page 2, Einachanami, second page, Shtai Taka, in Shulchan Aruch it says, in Orchayim, Hilchas Shabbos, Reish Ayin Aleph, it says, Halacha Tes, Tzorech Shtei Mapa Ala Shulchan Tachas Hapas, Umapa Acheres Prusa Al Gabov, Senish Genik. It's not enough to have a cover on top. That's not real Zeicher Lemon. Emes Zeicher Lemon is Azoivi the man, the way the man fell. The man was in between tal on top and tal on the bottom. So if the tam is Zeicher Lemon, then if you want to do the Zeicher accurately the way it was then, you have to state in Shulchan Aruch, you have to have below and you have to have above with the challah in between. Now that's the reason that Tosfos brings down. But there's another reason. So we have one reason for the covered Shabbos, which says only a cover on top. We have the reason for doime lemon, which is a cover on top and a cover on bottom. And then there's a third time, which the Torah brings b'shem the Yerushalmi. Page 3, next page, don't turn the page, just look right there. Koswa Tosfos, first he brings the davka b'yameim hoylem shulchim ketan v'kol echad shulchan no lefanov lo yalem torich lahafsik v'lhevi shulchan achai kiddush. Over there was small tables. It wasn't a big deal to bring the tables out. But so therefore there wasn't an Indian of covering over. But for us, where it's a big tirch, you can't pull out such a table. So therefore, because the food, the table was there, and as Taisus mentioned, it's covered Shabbos that your table should be set, and it's covered Shabbos that the challah should be there already. But now I have to make kiddush, so maybe I have to go ahead and cover it over. The pas on the zain the busha. What's the busha? Pirush shehu muktum bapasuk. The Torah Kedosha in Parshas Ekev talks about the mile of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Chita Usa'ira. Is Eretz Chita Usa'ira Gefen Te'ena Verimain. Eretz Zeis Shemen Udvash. State it's a land that has alle mine gute essen. Chazal tell us if the Torah Kedosha is makdim certain things in the pasuk, the Torah puts it first, like a bechar, like a kayin. There's an Indian of chashivas. You mention something first because it has chashivas. The first thing mentioned in the pasuk is chita and sa'ira. Nochdem, afterwards it says gefen. Hevei omer, it should be appropriate to make a bracha on chita and sa'ira. No. So I have in front of me kol tiv. I have good stuff. I have challah. V'shteiten the Torah that has a chashivas eretz chita sa'ira. And that's before yain. And I'm making kiddush on yain. So l'cha'ira, it's a busha in the sense to the way that when we talk about busha to the challah, maybe we mean also to the Torah Kedosha that gave the chashivas for the challah. So it's not like that fellow who said the challah with the wine are talking to each other. It has to do with the Torah Kedosha. The Torah gave chashivas to bread. So if you want to be machshav what the Torah is being machshav, so then you should make a bracha on the bread first, because the Torah gave it that chashivas. And you're not doing that, this was titman, cover it over. So this is another reason. And therefore you do berchas hayayin. V'ani shamati. So that's one reason. Then says the Torah, that state in Yerushalmi. V'ani shamati tam lase zeicher lamon shohoya munach kemoi bekufsa, which is in a box. Tal milamala, tal milamata, v'zeicher lezed noisem mapa tachas hapas v'acheres al gabav. So the Torah is mashma very clearly. If it's because of busha only, I don't need a map on the bottom. That's not necessary. It has nothing to do. It's just to make sure on top. But because to do a zweite tab, there's another reason because of Zeicher Lamon. Now you have to have two. That's l'chayra. So the nafkamina, if you have to have two or not, depends on what the reason is. And there's another grace in nafkamina. Go back to page 2. Go back to page 2 for a minute. To the Magen Avram, on the Chelek Shulchan Aruch that we read earlier. The Magen Avram says a fascinating nafkamina. If the Inyan is busha, when a person Leil Shabbos makes kiddush, and then he says, Abayre Priya Gofen. So until now, the challah has been covered. Why? Because achmacha bar priya gofen. But now that you made the bar priya gofen, that's it, it's over. You can take the cover off of the challah. The chelek of kedima, since the challah wasn't around, so there was no inyan of, so until now, it was an inyan of a busha. But the second brach of kedusha Shabbos, why shouldn't you make it when the challah is in front of you? If it's a din zeicher lemon, well, I didn't eat it yet. It's still zeicher lemon. Keep the cover on. But if the sibba, if the time is only would only be because of the busha making the bracha out of order, then I should be able to take the challah deco off of the challah. Look inside what the Mogen Avram says. Prusa, she'im haya megula. If it would have been open, if it would have been revealed, tzarech lagdimoy, k'mayshakos of reish tzadik tes, sif tes, the koydem liyayin, because it comes before yayin, because the Torah was machshiv, chiton sar before yayin, v'lechein mechaseu, v'lefi zeh, zok the Mogen Avram miyad, kishabir ech bayre priya gofen, Rishoy legaloi soy. You can take the dekala, you can take the challah cover off. Why not? Make the rest of Kiddush. Asher Kiddishanu, right? Shabbos Kodesh Ba'ahava. Why don't you say it on the challah itself too? Avo, says the Mogen Avram, Lefi atam the teisi suda beyikra the Shabbos. Over that the Shabbos should have chashivas lo yigaleyu ad achar kiddush k'moshe kasavte b'sif dalet. So then in the time, if it's the reason of the chashivas, then eino chanami, leave it on. If it's the reason of because of the busha, then faket. Now you made the brucha. And I'll tell you something even more. What happens if samachzach, a person doesn't have wine to make kiddush? Do you cover the challah? Should I cover the challah now? I don't have to. Because if the svara was the busha, it's no busha, you're making a bracha on the challah. But if the svara is the mon, cover it anyway. Avada, that's an nafkamina. If you learn it's only because of the busha, now that you're making kiddush on the challah, there's no wine. If samachzik, that person doesn't have any wine. So make kiddush on the challah, why should you cover it? There's no busha. Because it's not the only reason. Busha isn't the only reason for covering your challah. So doch zwei andere time Taisus brings. There's two other reasons. There's the reason also of the chashivas hasuuda and because of zeicher lamon. Zeichet the way the man came, the lechem mishnah. So then even if you are making kiddush on bread, you still on chal, you still cover it up. Zeichel laman and zeichel yukra de Shabbos, as I would come out. Okay, and let's see that inside. Take a look at page number 4. Moving along, the Mishnah Berurah. So already Zochinu, what's that? 4 over here or 7 at the bottom. The chelik of the Mishnah Berurah. So we've already learned this sif in Shulchan Aruch, Mitzad the Shulchan Aruch. We saw the Mogen Avram. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah. We're going to learn tonight, Bez Hashem, a shtickle of the Mishnah Berurah, a shtickle of Igros Moshe Moshe Feinstein, and learn an ochet from Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Scheiner Levracha. Well, and Bez Hashem will finish it off like with all the questions that we asked. What about making the mezainis as well? That's also. I can already tell you now. What bracha do you make? A mezainis comes from which type of food? Wheat. If the svara of wheat comes first, right? So then you should be covering the mezainis as well. Even though it's not hamoitzi lechem min haaretz, even though it's not lechem per se, but it's not because of the bracha of hamoitzi lechem. It's because of the chita that it's made out of. So if it's kosher lepesach cake, so then you would, it's not a problem. You make a shahakol. So you don't, so it's not in the pasuk. So you don't have to cover kosher lepesach cake because it's a shahakol. But if it's regular good old chumetz cake, so then, and the bracha is based on the chita that it's made out of, so then l'chayre it should require a cover. We'll soon see. All right, now let's take a look.
Today that we have challah boards, and then we have a cover under and I
don't know if I have such a fancy one myself, but I don't.
Takes care of both of them.
Al Gabav Zuk the Heilige Zuk the Chofetz Chaim in Mishnah Berurah. Bator b'shem Yerushalmi Shlayir Apas Boishtoi. As we saw, the reason you have to cover it on top is because of the busha. Since the bracha of chita has precedent, it should really come first. In mekadesh al pas, zog the Mishnah Brura, like we mentioned earlier, ain't tzarich lechas olav mapeh. You wouldn't have to go out and cover it over. The Torah himself said another reason. So that would be quite clear that would be negeh to cover. And Rabbi said, you understand the fact that the Torah said both reasons, they're not mutually exclusive. These two reasons, Beidazen and Emes, also for this and also for that. We want to do Zecher Laman, and we want also Shaloi Levayish, not to say the wrong bracha first. V'chein noihagim. U'mashra pimegodim shalakol ha'taimim da'i b'mekadesh al hayayin shemechusar achar shekam ha'kiddush. According to all reasons, it's enough that it's covered till you finish making kiddush, which is mashma, not by hamoitzi. Aha. V'chein b'shachris tzorch gam ken liyos hapas mechusar achar kiddush mitayim ha'meila. Which would mean, and by Suda Shlishis, the Machnish can Kiddush, and I feel if you do make Kiddush like the Hasidim, but they make it later inside, over there by Shalashudas it goes fakert, you don't make Kiddush first. They make in middle of in middle of Shalashidas. They drink a cup of wine, they say, right, they say, so do a nusach, but therefore the bracha of Chita is coming first. So there's a svar. That's why those people who said, I don't cover it by Suda Shlishis, for the reason because there's no busha. Because here you're doing the bracha in the right order, correct? But you're missing out the Zecher Lemon in Suda Shlishis by not covering it over. Mashma, he adds another nafkamina. We just said out busha till kiddush. He says no, but for the mun, until you don't eat it, actually, it still represents the mun. So wait till after Hamaitzi. Now, kosa beli chaim. Kishemekadesh al pas, tachlis. We said that the svara was if you're making kiddush on bread, on challah, then you wouldn't have to go ahead and cover it over. But on the other hand, we did say zeicher laman you should. So here says the Mishnah Brura how we paskin based on the Liyo Rabbi the Derech Chaim. Here's what you do. In case you don't have wine and you have to make kiddush on pas, here's what you should do. Yeniach yodov al hamape va'al halechem b'shas hakiddush. Just like when you'd make kiddush on wine, you'd hold a cup of wine. I'm not asking you to pick the bread up in your hand to where you pick up, because by the kais, the halacha is that a person's supposed to pick the kais up. It's one of the halachas that a person, right, you pick up the kais. But by chalas nishda azadin, what is there, however? Put your hand on top. V'shegia lahamoitzi yegala halechem mishnah. You should uncover the lechem mishnah v'yechyodav aleim v'yivarach hamoitzi. So, right, v'yoyim hashvi shavas v'yinafash al kein berech ezem shabbos v'yikacheu savim aranan baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam hamoitzi lechem min ha'aretz. If you don't have wine, you're making hamoitzi. Let it be uncovered, and it's brought down. V'kishegia l'Hashem yagviu shneim lamalo. You should pick up the bread. Harei the halacha is it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. The Torah brings down. You have 10 fingers. They represent Eser Svidis.
No, there's 10 mitzvahs that you do before you have a bread. There's 10 mitzvahs that...
The Sidur de Pas. But they also represent the Heilige Zachen and the Bruch of Hamoitzi. Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam hamoitzi lechem min ha'aretz. His 10 words as well. I think the Torah brings it down. So you're putting the whole bracha has 10 components, 10 words in it. You take all the 10 fingers, you hold them together, mehyped oaf, right? You bring kol be'asara shchinta shari. With the number 10, you're being mila the whole situation. V'kishagir l'shem yagir shneim lamala, ad sheyigma Hashem, v'achar kach yanichom. Then you finish the bracha, put it down. V'achar gmar hamoitzi, Yachser v'yechasem mapeh v'yeniach yodam alayim ad sheyireh kiddush. Cover it over again, put your hand and continue making kiddush. So fascinating. When a person indeed is making kiddush in those rare instances where a person doesn't have any wine and the only way to make kiddush is on the challah, you'll cover for the first part with your hand on top, uncover and hold them, pick them up for the bracha, put it down, and then recover it again for the second half of Kiddush. Zogt Reb Moshe Feinstein, page 5. ובמקום שהרבה אנשים אנשי אוכלים על הרבה שולחנות. In our introduction, we asked, what should you do if you're invited Leil Shabbos, or even Shabbos in the day, a bar mitzvah, oifruf, a hotel, v'chulei, and one person is making kiddush over there in the head table, and everybody's sitting around. And so do lachmaniyot, there's do chalalach. Kegoin b'yeshiva, shekol ha'bochrim oichlem b'cheder ochel echad, everybody sits in one dining room, v'al kol shulchan echad lechem mishneh, aval yayin lekiddush noisim rak al shulchan echad. Over there where the Rabbi is, or the Rosh Hashiv, or that's where the kiddush is. Asher sham mekadosh, over there, bocher echad, one of the boys are baking. Moitzi kol habuchrim shebecheder, and everybody's yoitza. Asher bechol hashulchanos. Im tzarech lechasos b'sas hakiddush as hachalish al kol shulchanos. Do you have to cover all the chalas and all the tables? Or yishrech chalish al shulchan make the tzarech? Just the mekaj ermacht kiddush. He's the one make. Let him cover his. What about everybody else sitting in the dining room? Says Reb Moshe Feinstein. Scheiner Levracha, hine mistaver lanias daiti bepshitus shetzorach lechasois gam al kol hashulchanois. Every table, you're in yeshiva, al buchrim, make sure all the chalas are covered. That's what the Moshe says. Loi mi boy letam zeichel lemon shemunach bekovsa. The every challah which is lechem mishnah is doch zeichel lemon. So your challah on your table is no less zeichel lemon than the challah on the head table. It's all zeichel lemon. So why shouldn't you all have to cover your challah? And like we said, when it's zeichel lemon, there's a tablecloth on the bottom, tablecloth on top, and the challah inside in between. Ta milamata, milamala, ta milamata, shu tam sheyesh mefarshim b'tois v'she'ein. That's the reason. Shu inyan lecha mishum mitzad atzmai. V'loi mitzad kiddush dafka. Zukt Reb Moshe, the din of kisui is not because of the lechem mishnah shabai, it's because of the towel shabai. So all of them. Ela she'af l'tam ha'shiltus b'tois v'rashbam sham, which is Suda Liyikra de Shabboso, that you should have a Choshev Suda. Also Nami who came. Should be the same thing. The Holy Yikra de Shabbos who legalas alechem rak kisherashoyim. You uncover the bread when you're ready to eat it. V'tzrichim levaitzeya hamoitzi lechol. That's when you uncover it. You have to cover over until you hear the kiddush. So it also be shaykh that reason. But if you hold the tour's reason, which is the busha of them, yeshli heyois, that on all the other tables no one's making kiddush, so the kiddush and the brach of the kiddush is only happening on the head table where the Berger is making kiddush. Says Reb Moshe, the chol mashahoya, top of the next page, shaykh li stapik, hoya letama yushalmi. Shehevi ator shelo yira pas boishtoi shemekashim al vayayin. The svara of the embarrassment. The kivon sheheim loy osu kiddush. So all the bachrim are not making kiddush. Ella yotza mimisha kiddush al shulchan acher. You're being yotza from yena bacher. Loy nikar kol kach al shar shulchanos me'eze kiddush yotzu. You can't really see. On this table, meher kiddush from a distance, but it's not in the face over here of the person and of the lechem. So it's Taisvis had said that once upon a time they used to have the tables prepared in the other room. And you had Kiddush over here, and then after Kiddush they brought out, those tables over there weren't covered over, because it wasn't in the same room. So Moshe was thinking about telling the same idea. Hey, that Kiddush is not happening on this table. So therefore the other tables, maybe they don't have to go and cover it over. Where it doesn't even know from where they're sitting, it's not evident what the Kiddush is on. So therefore, there would be a svara to say, according to that reason, you do not have to cover it. Avol, Reb Moshe concludes, Mistaver de Gamzen Nechshev Heker, Deine Mekachem Alapas. Since at the end of the day, nobody's making kiddush on this table, if they didn't want wine, then they would have made kiddush on the bread. And you're not making kiddush on the bread. So it's kind of muchach that the bread is being left over because of the kiddush of the wine. So therefore, Reb Moshe concludes, since Elavadai, the reason you're not making kiddush here on the bread is because there's another table making kiddush, so therefore you should cover this bread. Bottom line, says Reb Moshe, according to all reasons you should cover it over. That's his conclusion. Reb Shlomo Zalman was chaylik on him. On the next page, if you see in Shulchan Shlomo and Orach Chaim, he brings down in Shulchan Shlomo, he brings down in letter Tezayin, the Hine, in the bold letters, La Taima Diyuka de Shabsoi, Zeichel Aman Mistavish Anochan Lachasois. Ulam, Matam, Shelo Yira Boishta Yesh Lechalek Ben Atoyim Ayayin Lemishayin Atoyim. When you're in a yeshiva or you're in a place where people are not, there's one person making kiddush, he who makes kiddush, it should be covered over there. By other places, nisht. But because taka people are not so makbet to cover it over, it's all right. Even though, as we said, and he himself said, like the under reasons, you should go ahead and cover it over. But at least the busha is not here. Lechatchila, you should cover it. If you didn't, nishka ferlach. Now, v'zuk samayshi.
Question of
yeah.
a table with, let's say, challah rolls or whatever, or even cake that's sitting on the side table over there, we're eating kiddush over here.
Yes.
Be covered over.
You're going to take the challah from there soon.
It's just sitting there.
What's it doing there?
It's at my house. My kids have their cakes there or whatever it is.
And you're not going to be eating from it now?
Not during the Suda.
Then it doesn't have to be covered. Then because it's, first of all, it's not part of the Suda, so Yukur de Shabbos is not there. You tell me the answer. We just learned the three teruts. Yukur de Shabbos, it's not part of my Suda. If I'm not making part of Suda, Zeichel Aman is oichet nish. And I'm not eating it now, I'm not making a brach on it. So all three reasons don't apply.
There is potential that I'm going to...
Then you're asking a different shaila, if there's potential.
What about a challah that's opened up? Doesn't make a difference if it's...
That's a separate halacha, but whether you should make a bracha on a shleima or not. But it doesn't make a difference regarding the bracha of chita. Chita comes first, whether it's a shleimus or it's not a shleimus, because of that svota. Let's see another two pieces before we run out of time. Now, Eishlav, fascinating. Ma shemechasam apas b'Shabbos kodesh. Shamati shebesvar makdoshim hikshu. The oil bit gefregt akasha. If the reason that you're covering your challah is zeicher lemon, how many days did the month fall? 6 days. Every day you eat bread, why don't you make a Zeichel Laman? Shamati Kushya Azuk. Zuk the Eishel Avruam. The Eishel Avruam is betouched. Shebesvurim Akdoshim Hikshu. Al Tam Shu Zeichel Laman. Din Kain Gam Bechoil Kain Ayitzarech Liyos. Why are you only remembering the man? Every day they had man. But I need to daiti lakosha midi. Sebechlal not true. Hear the kasha. Zeichel Laman. Zukta lakasha midi. Favus. Kivan shebelel Shabbos kodesh is damin brachon brachon akol shated yom de Shabbosa. Ki yedua mezoyer akodesh. V'lezoichen Zeichel Laman b'Shabbos kodesh. The bracha of Shabbos. What is the bracha of Shabbos? So we saw last week when we did Lechem Mishnah, we said over from the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, whose Yortzeit is in another 2 days. So we said over, the Orach Chaim says, Vayivarech Elokim es yoim hashvi vayikadesh oisoi. Says Rashi, Birchu b'mon. The Orach Chaim HaKodesh said that that mon is only going to happen much later on. What does it mean, Birchu b'mon? So he explained, we saw that the idea of the man was that Shabbos Kodesh needs food, aber whatever was needed for Shabbos happened before Shabbos. It was the time that a person was able to chap out, the Eibishter took care of you. At Shabbos was a me'ein oila mahaba dekamatzev. You could sit and just be nehen. The Lechem Mishnah showed how Shabbos was a certain mikar habrocha. That because of this day, you are gebenched, that during the week, you'll be able to enjoy your Shabbos because your melacha will be done for you already beforehand. So it's not about just getting the mun, it's getting the lechem mishnah of the mun. It's being taken care of in such a way that you have no dagas whatsoever. When you're taken care of on a daily basis, but what's tomorrow? But if you're taken care of in such a way that you have for today and you have for tomorrow also, that's the lechem mishnah shaboy. So I'm not covering Zeicher Lemon per se. I'm covering Zeicher LeZeicher Mishnah, the lechem mishnah of the man. Zogt, the Eishel Avram, Kivan Shebelel Shabbos Kodesh, it's a heilig ubechinas vayivarech Elokim es yoim hashvi habrocha shori b'samui me'ayin. The Gemara says, Ein habrocha shoira ela b'samui. Today's Daf Yomi Gemara says the Malach HaMavis is full of eyes. Right? Eyes upon, and that's because, says the Maharal, because eyes have a koyach of being shoylet, like ayin hara. Eyes have a koyach of being shoylet. Ein habracha, when you expose things to other people, that's when you lose the bracha. A person has to make sure that whatever he wants should be matzliach. The Gemara says when you start counting the money and you start telling people, then you lose the opportunity for bracha. If you want a good business deal to go sour, share it with somebody else. Dos alein will be the reason it won't go well. So, in order, this lechem mishnah is a koyach of bracha. Zog the Eishel Avram, Memela Medavas Badek, and therefore you have to cover it over. That's the symbolism of it. That's what it means. Ubercha b'man deshisha v'kach b'mashoya mishnah. V'ayidei zen nochan lechasas gam shachris. V'gam Su'uda Shlishis. Like this time, that it's even though, as we mentioned earlier, many people do not cover the Challah on Su'uda Shlishis. We said, why not? The teretz is, if the time is because of Busha, so there's no Kiddush. So Busha is only by Leil Shabbos and Shabbos in the morning. Because that's when you're doing out of order what it says in the Pasuk. Instead of making the bracha on the Chit, you're making a bracha on the Yayin. So therefore there's an inyan of Busha. That's why everybody's noik to cover Leil Shabbos and Shabbos in the morning. Obviously, don't mention besorgen, cover Challah Shides, machnish kein Kiddush. They don't make Kiddush, don't have to cover it. Nachon, you're right. Aber sagt Eichel Avram, obviously, dein Inyan from the bracha of Dover Mechusse, that Shabbos Kodesh is a Mekara bracha, and when you have bracha, ain't a bracha shoyah b'dover someone in eye. So why shouldn't Suda Shlish be the selbe Sach? Hat gesucht, ich bin sich angefiert, my minig was, I always cover the Challah, even by Suda Shlishis. For Yenatam, als the bracha shaboy. Okay, let me get weiter. Page 10. Chut Sheni. Pas shemachusa benylon. Pas, it looks like this on this page. Pas amachusa benylon. See-through cover. There are challahs on the table.
Who's the Chit Scheiner?
Ich weiß nicht. There's, who's that? It's Rabbi Nissen Karelitz. There's plastic on the table. There's challahs on the table. There's no table cover. There's no napkins. Can you take the challahs and put them underneath the nylon? I'll put it underneath. It's covered. It's covered, but you can still see it. A pas shemachusha ben nylon. Im atam lekisa mishum zeicher lemon havenami kisui. Ach letam sheyir boishte shel pas shlem mekatchen olov. Aber if the time is it shouldn't see the busha. Ein nechshav a nylon kisui given the pas nira darkoi. It's not considered covered over. It's out. You can see it. V'hargoshes or adam he kishul of nea pas sha'afu shemachusha ben nylon. The svara was you have to be able to make a bracha, the right brachas. It's koydem b'pasuk. Which is koydem b'pasuk? The chita. I see it right over here. Machnish kam brucha. What does the nylon help? The nylon doesn't help in such a case. So mizan, it has to be dafka with something that you can't see. That's the one of the nafkaminas. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, page 12. Page 12. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. V'lechein b'Shabbos v'yamtiv k'shemekadesh al hayayin tzorech l'chasas ha'pas shel ha'yira boishtoi shemagdim ha'birchas hayayin v'chein b'shachris k'shemekadesh v'oichol minei mizoynos tzorech l'chasoyson b'shas kiddush. Why? It's not the bread. It's the chita. It's the kedima that the Torah was makdim this item, so the Torah gave it chashivas. Like Zog Nachama, what we said earlier, it's not the bread that got embarrassed. Torah was machshav this type of food by putting it first in the pasuk. So you're not following what it says in the Torah. The Torah was machshav it. That's the chelik of the busha. Zukt the Chayodam, page 19. Kishemekadesh b'Shabbos al hayayin tzorech lechasais hapas kedoi she'er bushtoi v'uadin b'shachris kisho'oichol minei mezoinos. Shtei do when you have mezoinos as well. So lidvarenu, is mezoinos mon? No, it's nicht kein mon. It's not mon. It's not mon. The mun was the lechem mishnah. Mezoinos nishkaman. Outs the svara from mun, you wouldn't have to cover it over. Outs the svara from busha. But here's the final nafkamina. Mimdoch gezokt. In Shulchan Aruch state you have to have two covers, top and bottom. Why? Because the towel came on top and the bottom. But outs the svara of busha of oichel, you don't have to have on the bottom. You just have on the top. For the mezoinos, you don't have to have on the bottom. For the mezoinos, it's enough only on top, because there, the only reason that shaykh is only the svara of busha. So when Shabbos in the morning, and you have telulach, you have plates, crackers, or cake, which are bracha bar mezoinos, which has the chashivas. So zeicher lamon, it's not zeicher lamon. But there is the chashivas of the bracha that you should have made. With that, so you should go ahead and cover up. As I state in Chayodim and as I state in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Once again, like we said in our introduction, when you know the tam, when you know the reason, then all the halachas hozatam. Shkoyach.